Hello everyone, welcome back to Morrigan. We're in the middle of battle, so we're going to just get right into it and continue. Stop! Magnus shouted, but Tam pressed the power harder and heard nothing but the spinning storm raging in his ears as the power created a whirlwind that rooted around in his memories and brought back the pain he'd endured at the hands of the trolls. It reminded him of the agony he felt as they laughed at him, called him a puppet, beat him endlessly with their pipes. Tam! And then he saw the pipe sticking through Owen's stomach, and he released that power with a yell. It spun out of control, travelling down the vines and entering Magnus. Tiny explosions from within sent bits and pieces of troll's hide out to coat the kitchen walls. Tam and Magnus were caught up in a whirlwind of power that shut out everything else. Tam, please! Finally, the troll disintegrated into ash, and the whirlwind stopped. Tam, panting heavily, felt his knees give as he collapsed on the kitchen floor. The wooden stick vanished as he stared at the ceiling. He started shaking violently, as if burning with fever. Boggs appeared above him, his expression an odd mixture of sadness and joy. "You've done it, Tam. You found your shalala." He nodded to his uncle. Yeah, he said, as he closed his eyes and settled in for a long sleep. The room was warm and sheets soft. Tam turned over, once again opened his eyes to find himself not in his own bed. When he pushed himself up, he looked at his surroundings. I'm not in Kansas anymore. Hell, I'm not in Cambridge. This room, unlike the cramped clutter of Boggs' trailer and the sparse furnishings of his own room, appeared to be filled with the latest in tech and modern conveniences. Tam got out of bed and realised he wore a pair of soft loungers. Where were his clothes this time? He pulled the legs of the loungers up to look at his calf. All he saw was a long-healed scar where the wolf had bitten him. Is this my healing power again? He stood by the bed and took in the long wall of closed blinds, the enormous flat screens on the wall opposite the bed, the smooth modern dresser with its handleless drawers, and two doors to his left. The door to the right was a bathroom, complete with a tub, a 6-nozzle shower enclosed entirely in glass, and a separate toilet room. An assortment of bags sat on the right of the shower. He found clothing inside, all in his size. New jeans, sneakers, underwear, socks, a gold shirt, a green hoodie. And he held up the hoodie. He noticed something on his left arm that simply hadn't been there before. He'd not seen it. He dropped the hoodie and turned to the mirror over the sink. Vines had been woven into the knots of his original tattoo. They travelled down his arm, wrapping around it, with four-leaf clovers added here and there, some large, some small. The vines ended on the back of his hand as they twisted into a point just at the middle of the knuckle, his bird finger. The design looked so familiar. I've seen this before, but it was in gold. In fact, he'd just seen the vines. This is the same pattern on my dad's pocket watch. He ran out of the bathroom, found his old hoodie hanging on the back of the chair. Tam shoved his hand into each of the pockets. I know I put the watch in my pocket. I remember doing it. But a thorough search of his clothing, unfortunately, proved he didn't have it. Tam ran back to the bathroom and looked at the tattoos under the bright light. The vines moved as if they were travelling down his arm to his hand. But once they covered his hand, they sprouted out from his palm and created the same walking stick he'd seen earlier. It formed in midair and would have fallen to the floor if he hadn't grabbed it. He put it in his right hand to make sure it wasn't still attached by the vines. It was separate. The stick itself was maybe 5 feet in length. It looked like someone had ripped a tree branch down and smoothed off the bark. It was irregularly shaped, with a larger knot at the top and taper to the bottom. Or is the knot the bottom? A carvings, exactly, like the one decorating his dad's pocket watch, were expertly worked into the wood, and the wood was warm. The pocket watch had been the most comforting thing he had, the only thing left to him by his real dad, and it was something Tam kept at his side since his dad died. Until that night, at the drum circle, he'd left it on his nightstand, probably the first time he'd forgotten it in 15 years. And now it was part of his tattoo. "So, you're my shalalach," he said, and felt a bit odd talking to a stick. "You're what that harridan wants." He felt a sort of impression from the wood, something akin to agreement, but not in words or in images, just a knowing. Is the thing sentient? He looked at himself in the mirror, saw the pointed ears once again, and the remaining band of tattoo on his arm, but the vines were gone. "I'm a leprechaun." Well, what the hell? But now he wondered how to make it disappear. The stick wrenched and lurched in his right hand. He held onto it at first until a burning pain in his entire left arm opened his right hand. The stick disappeared. The tattoos reappeared. The burning faded, but it made his arm sore. Had he interrupted it from returning by holding on to it? That was a good thing to know. He heard loud voices outside the bedroom door. He stepped out of the bathroom and put his ear to the door. He recognised Bog's voice, but not the other one. It was deep, a command and authority. Not that Boggs had ever succumbed to someone telling him what to do. He weren't one to listen. Tam took a quick shower and dressed, deciding that he wanted to install a multi-nozzle shower in his own bathroom. That is, once I clean Magnus Trollguts off the floor. A quick look in the mirror didn't do anything for the ears, but Tam trusted that whoever that was, he knew about Boggs and himself. He thought of Owen and hesitated before he opened the door and stepped out into a wonderland. The place looked like a cross between a lab and a home. He stood on a ledge overlooking a circular living area. A waist-high glass partition prevented him from falling as he leaned over and looked down. A circle of Celtic knots bordered the room, and he thought he heard something humming, like an engine. An engine somewhere. Glass stood in for most of the walls. The view of Boston was breathtaking. It was night, and the city was lit up like a sea of precious stones against a black backdrop. Modern-style sofas and chairs littered the space inside the circle of knots, spiralling into a fountain in the centre. From this height, he could see more knots in the faces of the fountain. The arguing voices carried upward. He could hear them, but he didn't see them. So he moved around the side till he found a set of steps and descended as quickly as he could. As he turned the corner into the round living room, he spotted Boggs standing on the far side, facing down another man. There was no mistaking who this was, and Tam was petrified with nervous energy it was inside him. "This is ridiculous. You poor excuse for a dethroned ruler," Boggs said, as he pointed at the taller man. "You think holding us hostage is the way to win over the prince's trust. I think, dear Boggs, that we're no longer alone. The taller man had turned and strode towards Tam. Boggs followed, albeit with a far less open attitude. Mr. Kirkpatrick, I'm very glad to see you up and about. The man's accent wasn't as pronounced as Boggs, but it was there, a touch of Ireland. Tam took the offered hand and shook it. He was a little unsure about what to say. Thank you were the only thing he could get out. You look very well. It's a good to see your leprechaun harp is awakening nicely. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Dian checked. Tam blurted out before he could be introduced, and making sure he pronounced it the way he'd seen it. Dian checked, which is a very weird way. Oh, I know all about you. I just read the article in Forbes, and I'm a bit of a gamer. Dion. That's a very weird name. Dion smiled. I'm flattered to hear that, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Please call me Tam, and you may call me Dian. He was sharply dressed. In real life, as he was in every commercial and advertisement Tam had ever seen. He was thin with soft, sharp features. Long blonde hair he kept in a neat and tidy ponytail braided down his back. His suit looked like he was custom made because it fit him very perfectly. There was just one small difference, something Tam hadn't seen in the magazine pictures. Dian's long, elegant, pointed ears. Boggs held out his hands. So, aren't you going to hit him with the real gut punch now? Patience, you old leprechaun, Dian said, though his tone was more playful. Tam, where's Owen? Is she dead? Dian's smile broadened. No, she's not dead. She's very much alive and in good hands. Can I see her? Dian's expression shifted just a bit. Can you call your Shillalach? Being more than happy to impress Dian, and hoping doing so would allow him to see Owen, Tam looked askance at his uncle. At Boggs' nod, Tam repeated his actions in the bathroom, but this time the moving vines went faster, as if their path to his hand was smoother. Within seconds, he held the Shillalach in his hands. The look of adoration on Dian's face was almost alien. Tam frowned at Boggs as Dian took a few steps closer, his fingers inches from the Shillalach. I wouldn't do that, Boggs started. Too late. A spark in the shape of a vine and clover shot out at the fairy's fingers and did a combo of shock and slap. Dian pulled his hand back, and for a second, Tam feared he'd made Dian angry. Instead, he shook his head and laughed. This is amazing. Do you know, it's been ages since I've actually seen a Shillalach in the hands of its rightful owner. Really? I was a minor king back then. The healer to 3, an advisor no one listened to. He turned and moved into the centre of the room. Tam dismissed the Shillalach, this time releasing it, so it could disappear into the tattoo once again, and then followed alongside his uncle to the fountain. And that's the end of this part, guys. Hopefully you will join me for the next. Interesting, isn't it? Many blessings.